Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. Well, how about another twist and another turn and a couple more dramas in college sports? First off, Brendan Sorsby, Cincinnati quarterback transferring to Texas Tech. Originally started in Indiana where he gambled on his own team. Turns out he's not going to play at Texas Tech this year. Turns out he is going to withdraw the lawsuit. That will make him ineligible for college football, which will make him eligible for the supplemental draft. And he's going to go to the NFL in the supplemental draft. And he's got like a week left, so he's done with the court thing. He's just going to the pros. I suspect he will get drafted, and I suspect he'll immediately get suspended, and he'll just move on. And I wonder if this would be the easy out. Now, the question is, and I think it is the easiest out, takes Texas Tech off the hook, although not until they've embarrassed themselves and really angered a lot of people. But I think the key here is the Big 12 getting a law firm and filing a lawsuit in federal court. Going to a federal court, and I think it's different. I know the NCAA is having problems in multiple court cases, but I think it always comes back to the fact that the NCAA, running things nationally, they've got a monopoly, and they keep losing on an antitrust basis. Whereas the conferences can make rules because there's multiple conferences, and they can enforce those rules. And I think the expectation, and who knows, because it didn't actually get decided. So, you know, this is a little on the squishy side, right? There's some conjecture here for sure. But I think Sorsby's legal team was worried that the conference would be able to enforce their rules. And in a federal court, they'd get the ruling, and then he'd be stuck. And he'd sit out a year, and then he'd go to the NFL, and they would punish him, and then he could be out 2 years. So go now. So ends the drama. There you go. So for once, we always complain about lawyers and billable hours, but it does look like the Big 12, both their in-house counsel and the counsel they hired, some big shot, saved the day and ended that whole drama. So the drama never stops in college football. So Will Hammond now, Texas Tech will wait for Will Hammond to get healthy and see if he can be healthy for Game 3, which is their conference opener against Houston on a Friday night in mid-September. That seems like the next big date there. And this does change things before the Big 12 media days. PK's been talking about how, well, this is going to hijack media days. No, it's not. No, it's not. It'll probably get referenced, but I don't think it'll hijack it. So college, the drama never stops in college sports. You need something else? Well, here you go. Mark Harlan, Utah Athletic Director, is scheduled to join us this morning at 8 o'clock. And the reason he wants to be on is to talk about the deal with Otro Capital. Yes, the private equity deal. Cutting edge, first school to do this. We'll see how quickly other schools follow. How is this going to work? There are no details out there, right? How much money does Otro get to take out every year? How much money does the U have to generate to make this all worthwhile? So that, there's plenty of doom and gloomers out there. And hey, I worked at a TV station that was owned by private equity for a while, so I get it. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, and people were not sorry to see them move on. But every deal doesn't go exactly the same way. You know, some deals go better, some deals go worse. And I know you, and well, honestly, me too, are all thinking, hey, the odds of a private equity deal going great for the company are not good. But they don't all go the same way. So how does this play out? We'll talk with Mark, see if we can get some specifics. Because until the deal was done, they wouldn't release it. Now, theoretically, we're going to be able to get this through a Freedom of Information Act. We'll see how quickly that happens. I haven't seen it yet. There are lots of people trying to get it, and I know people here at our company have been trying to get it and have been turned down, but they were told because the deal hadn't been finalized yet. So now it's been finalized. We'll talk to Mark today. We'll see what he's willing to say, but I'm intrigued, and if he doesn't come on with specifics, I'd be a little surprised because I don't know why else he would come on. To think he can just talk and turn this around. There are too many people, too many companies have had a bad experience with private equity, quite frankly. So, but at the same time, that doesn't mean everybody does. So, I think we got to be willing to listen here and see what he says and see if we get any specific numbers and goals and how reasonable they seem. To me, if there's going to be a quantum leap forward financially, And we got to talk about the goals, too, because we haven't heard that. If the goal is to take a quantum leap forward, it seems to me there's two ways this can be done. One, by reconfiguring the Huntsman Center, a lot more expensive seating, a lot of luxury suites, executive clubs, the real premium seating. That could generate a lot more money at men's basketball games, assuming the team gets better, and maybe could generate a little more money for the other events in there because women's basketball, women's volleyball, women's gymnastics are all there. So there could be some opportunities there. I do think the Huntsman Center is a chance to make a big leap forward. And the other is this enough cash to get them good enough and keep them poised, so if the Big Ten expands, if there's some kind of super league forming, whatever that looks like, whatever form that takes, they're in instead of out, because that would lead to a massive jump in revenue. So that's a couple paths forward. Maybe there's another one, and we can ask him and see what he says. I'm curious. Those are the two that occur to me. And I know people think there's no way forward. Well, I think there is. I do think that joining the Big Ten, that'll be tricky. Everything we're hearing is that it's a constantly moving target and that plans change all the time. And I think everybody in the West is trying to get themselves ready for this. I think clearly the Big Ten's going to add a couple teams in the East. I think clearly they're going to take a couple teams out of the ACC, and that would get them to 20. But I think there's I think the Big Ten and the SEC are going to withdraw from the national playoff and just have their own playoff. Have a 2014 league, build your own playoff in there, and then have a Super Bowl where the SEC champ plays the Big Ten champ, and everybody else can do whatever they want. Form another playoff, play bowls, whatever, they won't care. Because they will have, for all intents, broken away at that point. But if they are going to 24, I think they need to add at least 2, maybe 4 teams in the West. So I think there's a chance there for our local schools. I don't think our local schools would be at the front of the line, at least not the line as I see it. Who the heck knows how the Big Ten sees it? But Stanford and ASU. And I know a lot of people say Stanford and Cal because the rivals. Hey, Oregon and Washington left Oregon State and Washington State behind. I'm not convinced a rival is going to go just because they're a rival. Now, Cal is an excellent academic school, and they're in a major metropolitan area. And Washington State and Oregon State have their strengths, but they don't have Cal's academics, and they're not in major metropolitan areas. So I don't automatically think Cal is going to be banished the way Oregon State and Washington State were. But I also don't know they're automatically going to be at the top of the list. And maybe they'll be high enough up at the list to get taken care of. Maybe Utah and BYU will. Colorado and Arizona would probably also raise their hands and volunteers. There are a lot of teams that will raise their hand and volunteer. And I don't know how many teams are going to let in. But I am curious. Arizona is now in that AAU, the American Association of Universities, are really prestigious. 40 years ago, Arizona State's academics weren't great, but it has changed. At Stanford, and their academics and their research and all that speaks for itself. So, and they are a national brand and have a relationship with Notre Dame, who could be another team going into this. Who knows how long they're going to be independent. So there's a lot of moving pieces. And I don't even know if the Big Ten will do it or to what degree. They'll just go to 20 and do everything else later because they don't think our local schools would be the first ones in. But if they're going to 24, I could see it happening. I just don't think you can build a national brand. All the other sports leagues, I've talked about this before, these other sports leagues, whether it's the NFL, Major League Baseball, and NBA, NHL, even Major League Soccer, they've got 7 or 8 teams in 10 Western markets. And to think that college football is going to do this Super League and only have 4 teams in 3 markets in the West, they will lose the West the way they've lost the Northeast. They got to have more teams out here. All the pro sports leagues know it. If you're going to be a pseudo-pro sport, you got to know it too. So I think there's really an opportunity here. And college sports rivalries matter in a way they don't in the pros. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. It'll be interesting to talk to Mark and see what he thinks the benefits are of this Otro deal. We'll talk with him coming up at 8 o'clock this morning. Make sure you're here for that. All right, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Stay with us. Coming up, we're going to hear from Steve Cleveland on the NBA Finals and Jay Stevens on the Stanley Cup Finals. Stay with us. DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined now by Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach and Fresno State coach. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, fellas.
The Knicks are champs. I suppose you're pretty happy about that. Jalen Brunson was awesome, 45 in Game 6. They got a bunch of likable guys on that team. I think Bridges is really easy to root for, and Cat's really easy to root for, and the coach Mike Brown is really easy to root for. But you know what NBA people are thinking about right now? That's all stuff for fans. Can you really build teams around 6'2 guys? Because that very rarely has paid off. But the game's different. The floor's spread. All these guys are standing around the three-point line. There's more space around the hoop. Is Brunson on the cutting edge of a new trend, or is he just an outlier and that was a remarkable performance and enjoy it? But if you're a GM and you go chasing that model, you're going to get hit upside the head in the playoffs. What do you think?
Well, there is truth to that from both sides. I think, first of all, a lot of love to the Knicks, and we've been doing this for a while together, guys, and to see that kind of unfold in front of me, and to see the Knicks win their first title since 1973, Mike Brown just did a great job. The coach did a great job, and it was all about sacrificing. Knicks won that NBA Cup title during the year. That would have been a little bit of an idea that the Knicks had it in them. But Brunson was incredible, and just as clutch as they get. They needed pretty much the whole season to kind of get things right. But I think the things that are most important to me is that the players were engaged, and they're constantly, and I give credit to the coaching staff and all the support groups, but it's one of those things that Coach Brown, I think, instilled in this group was to, number one, they had a lot of college teammates playing together, which is really crazy. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, winning that thing in the NC2A 2016, 2018, and then bring that group back together and basically went on an 11-game playoff winning streak, swept the Sixers, the Cavs. Wemby is great, and he'll have his day and time. But the bigs, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Mitch Robinson, Bridges, Brunson, Hart, lots of titles. And I was so happy to see how it played out and fun to watch. So the drought's over. Knicks won their first title. And I think that Brunson obviously proved that he was the finals MVP with that 45-point showcase. So I just fell in love with this group, and I have a lot of friends that have ideas and thoughts, and they're always talking to me. And for whatever reason, a lot of my friends and people that I'm close to in this business kind of had different ideas and thoughts. And I said, fellas, this is one of them. Can we just enjoy this special moment right now and what took place with players and coaches? And yes, Wemby was, he's who he is, and he's going to have a great career. But let's just enjoy the Knicks championship and obviously Coach Brown putting things together. But really watching Brunson do what he did, Jalen was incredible, and to do it with his two teammates in college, Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges. So I'm excited about it. I'm happy about it, and let's talk about whatever you want to talk about.
He's a free agent, right? He's a second-round pick, speaking of Brunson, and so he's been with the Knicks 4 years ago, and I called up something, his introductory press conference in 2022 with the Knicks. He's got a quote, and I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to read you a quote and then ask you a question.
Okay.
Quote, everywhere I've gone since high school, it's always been Jalen Brunson's good, but always that but, like they're going to say something negative. Too slow, not athletic enough, too small. All those things that don't measure heart, that's what I have. How do you measure heart?
Oh, man, I love that's where we're going because, in this setting or whatever the setting is, professional, collegiate, high school, it doesn't matter. It's one of those things that you have to embrace, the moment. And yes, he's not tall enough, he's not big enough, he's not quick enough, but he's a champion. And I think as we've watched this whole thing unfold, it just let's just go back to the fact that three of these guys played together in college. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges. You know, the Knicks, a team that probably had the most tortured fan base of any fan base, you know, in all of college hoops and NBA hoops. But I think the thing that when I look at what's happening, and I look at Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby and Mitch Robinson, the bigs, they don't get a lot of the hype and all the things that go with it, but those bigs were amazing and had a huge influence. And obviously Bridges, Brunson, Hart, NC2A titles. There's a chemistry, I guess is the best word to say. There is such a great chemistry and was such a great chemistry with this group that it was just fun to watch. The drought's over. You know, they win their first title. Brunson MVP, fans celebrate. I just loved it. I sat there with my wife and I was watching it, and I just couldn't get enough of what we were watching and what was happening. And yes, Wemby will have his time. Losing in the finals, it's painful. He'll have his time and opportunity. But the Knicks now have actually the list of teams with no titles in 50-plus years. That's got to be a wonderful thing to feel, and all that pressure taken off yourself, and we can enjoy this time and this opportunity. I love this series. I love how it played out, and there's just a passion. There's a passion about this group and how they came about getting it done. And anyway, I loved every moment. And let's move on.
Is the real key to the Spurs going forward Harper? Did he show you something in this series that made you think when they get across the finish line, it's going to have a lot to do with him?
Oh, yes. You know, and one of the things you can watch in the post-game videos is to look at, and they don't give a lot of time to the losers, but I could feel the pain. And Harper is a special player, and, you know, whether he gets back to this situation or, you know, whatever happens, but that's a guy I want on my team. And a lot of heart, competitive, just a guy that you want to have him by your side. And so the drought's over, Knicks won. Let's move forward and see, you know, kind of what happens with Wemby and that group and Harper and what's going to happen there. I think there's a lot of good in front of us as we'll look at these teams going forward.
Potential major developments here with the draft coming up. Multiple national media outlets reporting that AJ has conducted formal visits with Washington and the Jazz, obviously the numbers 1 and 2 in the draft. And Darren Peterson only visited the Wizards and does not plan to grant anyone else a meeting. So it's either number 1 or that's it. And so he's not going to meet with the Jazz. How does that influence, in your mind, the decisions that face the Jazz?
Well, I was surprised by this, and I'm sure you were too, that we wouldn't be more open-minded to, you know, what's happening, and maybe that decision's been made, and maybe he's going to the Wizards and going there. But going forward, I think when you look at the Jazz, you know, they got the Jazz right now have kind of a franchise or a cornerstone with a seeding level that I'm not quite sure. You know, the first 4 picks, AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, Caleb Wilson, you know, these are all guys that are going to be in the mix. I think everything I've seen and heard is that AJ is going to be the number 1 seed, and he's going to end up going to Washington. Personally, I hope that's not true, but it seems like that's how it's playing out. I think Peterson wants to play the point guard, and I think that's something that I think the Jazz would certainly entertain. He's, you know, basically grown into 20 points per game, 43% field goal, 38% three-point, 82% free throw. Played at Kansas. We know he's talented. And I think that would be a great pick for the Jazz, personally. And he's got, you know, he's creative in shooting. You look at Jazz shooters, Keontae George, Ace Bailey, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson, and Darren Peterson. I think that's a good get. I think it's a guy that, you know, I think he's around 6'6", maybe 6'7", but he's certainly in a position to help the Jazz. And then, the selling points, I mean, obviously AJ is the best scorer in college basketball. I just don't see that going differently. But I think as a Jazz fan, we'd love to see something miraculous like that happen. Regarding, we haven't talked a lot about Boozer and kind of what he brings to the table too, another guy that can impact a program and impact a franchise. Probably Boozer, as I've read things and watched him, there's some physical tenacity and toughness that he can develop. I just don't like putting guys in a box and saying this is who they are and this is what they're going to be. But I think there's a toughness that Boozer can develop and really have an impact and be on a winning team. And I think with Markkanen, Kessler, Ace Bailey, you add Peterson to that group, and I think the Jazz have gotten better. And I think that the Jazz will be a better team going forward. And who knows what's going to happen with trades and other things. So we'll see. I think I trust Austin Ainge. I've known him a long time. We've talked about this before. He's a brilliant young man that knows this business. And making the right pick will be really important. And in some of those things, it's just out of their control. And it's just kind of, hey, this is what it's going to be, because that's where the cards lay out. But I think the Jazz will be better for this experience, and I think the Jazz will be better as a result of this draft.
When you were recruiting, how many people did you talk to who knew the players? I mean, 5, 10, 25, 50? Because it seems like in this situation, and this is different than recruiting because you had to recruit so many guys, and there's only, when you have that 1 or 2 pick, you got later picks in the draft, but you can invest a bunch of time in this one slot. I'm just wondering, even if they can't talk to Peterson, if you talk to enough of his college teammates, high school teammates, AAU coaches, college coaches, people in the Kansas program who are around him all the time, can they talk to enough people? I mean, do they go 20 or 30 deep? I don't have a good feel for it, but I assume they talk to a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to do your due diligence. And I think it's, when I was a college coach, I wanted to get every bit of information that I could get, from grandma to, his high school coach to his AAU coach to friends and family. I mean, no stone unturned. I mean, you really diligently go after this thing and making sure that you're getting the right fit for this particular player, whoever that might be. And so, yes, I think I remember recruiting, and I remember going into homes and, with family members. I can still remember one of my recruiting visits. I was recruiting Lee Kamard, and I went down to visit with him. And he lives in Arizona, and I go down there, and I walk into the house. There's like 40 people with ASU hats on, and I'm coming there representing BYU at that particular time. And I mean, I could barely get eye contact with these people. It was like, oh boy, this is going to be really, really difficult. And as it turned out, there were some people in the family, and there were others and coaches, and it all played out. And Lee ended up being at BYU, but that's kind of how it is. And having relationships and having that understanding of moving forward and what's best for me, and getting as much input as you can. And I think whether it's in college or it's the NBA draft, that's happening, and it's happening with Austin Ainge right now, making the right pick. Some of those things are already kind of etched in stone because they've done all of their due diligence, they've done all the work, and you look at the cards, you lay them out and go, well, it appears that probably Peterson is going to end up with the Utah Jazz. Things can change, and who knows what could happen, but I think Peterson will be a wonderful get for the Jazz. I just think he has a great upside, and he's a shooter, and you can't have enough great shooters. I don't care what league you're in, what's going on. You got to have great shooters to make your team better and give yourself some longevity of success over the years coming forward.
You're a college coach at Fresno, which had a ton of NCAA violations and all that stuff, and so you got to make sure the kids are doing what they're supposed to do. What do you think of this Brendan Sorsby thing of him potentially being able to play next year with the gambling? In my mind, the Brendan Sorsby, he's just the guy, but the issue is far bigger. And if he's allowed to play, then that basically opens the door that kids can gamble on their teams and gamble and whatever while they're playing college, which just means, man, they're going to have so many temptations. People are going to try to get a hold of them. We've already seen problems from time to time. So I think this is an important decision, not just for Sorsby and Texas Tech, but for all of college sports.
I completely agree with you. And it's when I read that and kind of tried to get my arms wrapped around what this might look like going forward. I don't know all the decision makers here, but that would be something that would be critical to the development of players and coaches and programs. And if we go down that route, and that's where we're going to go, and not having that kind of control, at what point in time do we say, just stop it? Stop it. And, you put enough attorneys together and lawyers together, and you get coaches together, and all these people together, and we're opening a door to Pandora's box that could destroy the game. It impacts young people, whether they're international athletes or they're here locally. I just don't want any part of that. I can't imagine. I haven't spent as much time as both of you probably on. I'm aware of it. I've read the articles, and I don't know that I'm smart enough to have all the right answers right now there. But that's going down a slippery slope that is not good for college or NBA basketball.
It seems like the conference can prevail here. The NCAA can't because it's antitrust, but there's so many conferences and a player could transfer and they can each make their own decision about whether they let him play. I'm no legal expert, but it feels to me like the Big 12 is going to win this.
Well, yeah, I trust the Big 12. I've been watching them. And, over the year, the last few years as we had that conference I just hope, for the sake of not just the sport, but for the sake of players and coaches and where we go down this slippery slope, is that there'll be enough intelligent people in that room to say, this is silly, what are we doing here? And that's what I would hope. I'm not a decision maker here, but I certainly have an opinion. And so I don't want any part of that. And we'll kind of see what happens. I'm not smart enough to know all those things and understand them anyway, but I just think it's not good for the sport. It's not good for young people. It's not good for the impact that whether they're brokers, agents, parents, all the intangibles you put your arms around and try to figure this all out, that we'll find a way to keep an integrity. I guess that's the word I want. Make sure there's some integrity here, and as these decisions are made and we go forward, and when integrity all of a sudden doesn't exist in that environment, then we're going down a slippery slope again. That's not good for the sport. It's not good for young people. It's not good for families, and whatever it might be. So I'm hoping we can eliminate that kind of environment, which can just destroy programs, players, families. Only there's enough common sense that we go, no, we're not going to do that.
Steve, we'll leave it right there for now. Glad you enjoyed the NBA Finals. Now you got a week to gather yourself for the NBA Draft.
Yes, sir. Right. I got some work to do. Thanks, fellas. Always good to be with you.
There's Steve Cleveland. When we come back, Jay Stevens talking Stanley Cup Final next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Yesterday we had Jay Stevens on to talk about the Stanley Cup Final and where the Utah Mammoth go from here. They need to make moves. They need to get better, but how do you do that? Do you do it by trading the young guys away and bringing in some veterans, or do you do it by bringing the young guys up and letting them grow into it? Here's Jay Stevens with PK and I on the Zone. Jay, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Always love the Beastie Boys intro. That's a perfect pick.
Looking at this, now that it's all over and Carolina has won the Stanley Cup, is it easy to say that in this year, the fact that Colorado had so many injuries really explains what happened in the playoffs? Vegas with their draw to the conference final isn't crazy. Colorado with their draw to the conference final isn't crazy. Carolina was the best team in the East. And if Colorado had been healthy, maybe it would have been Colorado and Carolina. But since Colorado wasn't healthy, Carolina is the champ, and in dominating fashion, the way they won at the end there in those last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more than fair to say. Everybody had Colorado. I had Colorado and Carolina in the final. So I think, yeah, once Colorado wasn't healthy, because if you watch these two teams during the season, they just absolutely dominated. Obviously, Colorado wins the President's Trophy and then gets banged up a little bit. And Carolina just stuck to their system. They had such a good team. They were never able to get past the conference finals. And they stuck to the system. They added some important parts like Jackson Blake. And I think that just gave them that extra push. And then to do it with 2 goalies hasn't been done since the 84 Edmonton Oilers. So, yeah, I think that's fair to say. It would have been amazing to see what Colorado could have done to challenge Carolina's dominant, forecheck. I think they were built pretty much the same. They're both a real fast team with a super aggressive forecheck going up against a team that just is a brute force team with good zone entry. So, yeah, I think it would have been really interesting to see, but that's why the playoffs are set up this way. It's always an adventure.
As we do with the Jazz, we look at stuff to how it relates to them, as we watch the NBA and as we're getting accustomed with what the Utah Mammoth are about, we're looking at the NHL with an eye towards the Mammoth to see what they can learn from that. Anything, not just in this particular series, but in the entire postseason that you saw that caught your eye in terms of what the Mammoth could use or need?
Yeah, what really stands out is having a little bit more of an aggressive second line. The second line was the difference last night. You look for Utah's got to be looking at somebody else that can come in and be more sandpaper. They need 1 or 2 more big bodies to wear down the other team's offense, and then that balances out the speed. If you see what Carolina did, they had a super fast first line, a really fast but physical second line, just really chippy, agitating guys. I mentioned Jackson Blake already. He just and Stakehoven, they had that. They just had that grit to them, and where they finished every check. And if you took the puck from them, they just turned around and went right back at it. We call that water bugs or whatever. They just seem to be everywhere and just flying across the ice like that. And they definitely have that. And that's something more that the Mammoth need to add to their depth. And we really need to see what Vanacek could have done as a backup. I don't think they re-sign him. I think he was qualified, but we didn't see him play enough games to really get comfortable. And I think that's the same with the team. But Utah knows they need a solid number 2 or a number 1B. And there are a couple options coming available in the free agency. Nothing great, but maybe a guy that could play a year or possibly see what the youth movement has in it. But those are the biggest gaps between what they have now and what they need to get in the future, to make it further in the playoffs. They need more grit, they need solid goaltending, and they need 2 rested goaltenders when they enter the playoffs.
That sandpaper and grit you talk about on the second line, is that player that you're imagining in the system on the way up, or is that something that the Mammoth need to go out and acquire and use some of those prospects to have the value to get back whoever it is they need?
That's the question I've been getting the most. And I think the best answer from everything I've seen is basically every part the Utah Mammoth need is already in the pipeline. When I talk about goaltending, they've had that Villalta, they've had Stauber. Both of those guys deserve a chance. They're both free agents this year, but both of those guys deserve a chance to get some NHL games. They've proven themselves in the A. And then you got Michael Hrabal coming up, who could really be the future goaltender for the Utah Mammoth. He's 6'7". He had a phenomenal NCAA career, so he's already there. And as far as the sandpaper, man, they've got a couple. That Cole Beaudoin that they picked up right after they drafted Iginla that first year as the Utah Hockey Club, that guy's grit, and he's big, he's strong, he plays just like his father who played in the NHL, where he's just got the perfect NHL body already. And then I've talked about him before, but Gabe Smith, a 4th-round draft pick part of the Utah Hockey Club, he's an absolute steal in the 4th round. If the draft were to be this year, he'd be a top 5 pick easy. He's just gotten better and better. He's got a mean streak to him. He's already in the preseason games for the Utah Mammoth. I think he's already fought 3 times, and I think he only played like 3 games. So he's a guy that you're going to see. I really expect him to be challenging for, if not taking, a roster spot this year. And same with Beaudoin. Both those guys could make the team this upcoming season.
This is fascinating for me to see what the management with Bill Armstrong is thinking, because you can expedite it, but you don't want to expedite it at the risk of losing a potential big-time game changers. So they got to figure out, what's available and what is the cost of that availability, and then decide, okay, this is the right thing to do, or back off and say, nah, we're just going to wait. We're going to hold our cards because we believe that if we sit tight in a year or two, we would have something that could be more special that would last several years. So I find that whole concept fascinating to see what they can do. If I put you in charge, what would you do?
I have learned so much from watching Bill Armstrong this year. I've been an NHL fan for as long as I can remember, and to see a guy do exactly what he says he's going to do consistently and not change anything, I think I would stick with the current plan. I think there's got to be a little bit of regret for giving up on Doan.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is nothing about Peterka. Peterka is going to be a phenomenal player for Utah. But I think Doan would have been more that second-line guy, just an amazing second-line center that plays super physical. He is a game changer, and he proved that already this season. And, this was his first full season in the NHL. And to see an asset like that go away and then see the work that you got to put into Peterka to get him into your system, which is kind of this, I guess it's the same thing they were doing with Doan. They brought him up. They thought he wasn't ready to finish those plays, so they sent him back down to the A. But, man, I just think the way they're doing it seems so smart, so well thought out. And if you look at everything in the pipeline, I love the line you just used of holding your cards, because, man, they've got a bunch of aces up their sleeves, and I hope they hold on to those. And it's been fun to watch because, like I said, some of these free agents come up, and you'll see other teams kind of forget what they have in their hand and – put it down and say, hey, give me that guy. And I was worried that Utah would do that for Larkin. But every time you see any player wants a trade, immediately the online blows up that it's going to be Utah. And I just don't see Utah being a real big player in either free agency or making a trade. I think they know what they've got. This is exactly where they wanted to be when they said they wanted to be here. They want to get good eventually and then stay good for a really long time.
Right.
And everything that you look at says they're ready for that.
Kevin O'Connor, former Utah Jazz general manager, said once when someone said something about overpaying for a free agent, he said, you always overpay for free agents. The question is, how much do you overpay for free agents? Is the same true in the NHL? Because even though you can make your team better, you also jam your team up against the salary cap and prevent you from making the next move. If you're 3 moves away, you don't want to spend all your cap room on one move and then think, well, now how do we make the next 2? So there is a certain reward with staying with the young guys, but plus it keeps you out of that cap trouble. So if you're not sure what to do, maybe that tips the scales right there, staying out of the cap trouble. How much have you seen teams jam themselves up with one free agent move or one trade and they overpay and they don't have enough left to make the next couple of moves?
Yeah, you see that a lot. Just the most recent that comes to mind is the Nashville Predators. They went out and got all the high-dollar free agents with Marcia Show and Stamkos, and they're like, that was 2 years ago, and they thought, this is going to be the Stanley Cup for us. We're going all in. And gave those guys big contracts for longer term than, their teams were willing to do, and they didn't even make the playoffs the first year with all that talent. And you see it a lot. You see this guy was so amazing, but sometimes, especially in hockey, the thing that makes you amazing is the line you're on and the guys you're playing with and that chemistry. So you've seen a lot of teams do that, and that's one thing the Mammoth and Bill Armstrong has consistently said is, we're not going to try to win the Stanley Cup, in July. We're not going to go on free agency and spend and win it that way. They're going to pick up valuable assets that are cheap, which, there's a couple of goalies that are coming up that'll be cheap. And then, like you said, it's perfect to bring this. Now's the time to start the youth movement because those guys are $900,000 a year for the next 3 years. And you're right. So that keeps that salary cap open and gives you a lot of time for not a lot of money to give them the experience. The only question is, are you willing to let the youth movement come in right now? And are you willing to take a little bit of a step back in the standings to give these guys the experience they need right now and make them better for the next season? Do you sacrifice the upcoming season for the 27-28 season?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Jay. I'm wondering if I can make the point, though, if they do that, so for sake of argument, they go ahead and do that, but yet a lot of the core, particularly a couple players that are already here, are still young themselves, and we expect internal improvement from them. So if they go with these guys, bring them up, but then the nucleus of the team, at least 2-3 guys, still are young enough that they can improve, that they can offset that, and so they don't necessarily have to take a step back while they're progressing the development of the young guys, because the guys who aren't here, but the guys on the team, the young guys, they're developing and they're going to be better, so we can handle that and still be a competitive playoff team in a year from now. Is the mindset that? Because I can see that can be a plausible possibility.
Yeah, 100%. They've taken a long time to build this nucleus, right? This talented group of super young kids. I mean, you look at Keller, the veteran leader on the team, at 27, 28 years old. Yeah, so they've got exactly what they need to keep moving forward. The problem is, and it's not a problem, because these kids coming in have had successful major junior seasons or even played a year in the A. So you would expect them to be able to come in and be ready. But that's going to, one way or another, that's going to cost you a few games in the beginning of the year while these guys get caught up to the speed, because there's no better teacher than the game. Like, the guys have to be in the game to get the experience, to be good down the road and be able to battle that out. So, yeah, you're right. Maybe it doesn't affect them. Maybe they put these young guys in and they don't skip a beat. But that's the gamble. That's the thing that Bill has to figure out is, will we skip a beat? Is it worth it to skip a beat? And that doesn't mean they don't make the playoffs, even if you're teaching these young guys. Just means that maybe you lose a few games that you would have won the season before. And that's just an experience thing. But also, maybe these young guys coming in need that. Maybe they don't know that, some of those overtime losses that the Mammoth experienced, maybe these are overtime specialists or, really good third period shutdown guys. And they've got the time. I mean, we're talking all top 10 picks coming in.
Yeah.
So they definitely have the potential to just be a phenomenal team with a lot of youth movement.
Jay Stevens, NHL insider for KSL Sports and host of the Utah Puck Report, joining us. I break the core of this team into two groups. I mean, they definitely have young guys on the way up in Cooley and Gunther, and their timeline matches these younger guys. But, man, Sergachev and Keller and a handful of other guys, they're in their primes. Like, now's the time. So when you say, hey, you're willing to take a step back this year, no. Sergachev, Keller, this is it. Let's go. So I'm wondering if there's a middle ground here. Bring the young guys up. And this all started with you saying, hey, they need someone with some grit on that second line. And you also made a good point. Some guys look good because of who they're on the ice with. So my question is, as these guys come up, do you see, and maybe it's not the same for all the guys coming up, there may be a distinction there, somebody who should be put on the second line, and they need to be with those guys, and there will be growing pains, and it is Keller's prime, and it is Sergachev's prime, and oh well, we're going to do it. But can you bring them up and put them on the fourth line? Now they're not on the ice with the same guys, so maybe they don't learn the same way, but maybe that's a way to finesse it a little bit, and maybe it depends on the player. What do you think?
Yeah, 100% depends on the player. A guy like Cole Beaudoin, you could put on the fourth line. A guy like Gabe Smith is going to be a fourth line guy. Your third line could use some grit too, but you don't put a guy like T.J. Ginla or Caleb Denoye anywhere but lines 1 and 2, because those are your scoring lines, those are your finesse lines, and those guys, that's the guy's jobs. You've seen in the past, or a guy gets pulled up and they get put on a fourth line, and you're T.J. Ginla. The fourth line guys aren't going to keep up with you, for one, and then two, like there's. No,
we lost him. Internet connection goes. You don't trust a cell phone, then you put him on his laptop, and then the computer goes. Okay, fine. I know. Walked us right to the cliff there, and then fell apart.
Well, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Go on. That's all you can do.
We are going to go on. Just sit here in silence.
Well, it's fascinating to see what they do, but the good thing is they're dealing, I think, from a position of strength. It's not a panic situation, so I take comfort in that. It's like the Jazz. No matter who they draft, it is an opportunity to get the team better.
Jay Stevens is back with us now. He has rejoined. Jay, you walked us right to the cliff. Finish that thought.
Am I here? Okay, so what I was talking about is just being able to put talented players in the right positions, because you can't put a guy like Iginla on the fourth line. The fourth line doesn't think and react like Iginla. You know, your third, fourth lines are supposed to draw penalties, create turnovers, frustrate the other team, pin it down in their corner and tire them out and make them chase you around for a bit. And that would be, you know, guys in the past have been pulled up and put on those lines. In the 80s and 90s, it was like, all right, we pull the guy up out of the minors. He can't be in the top two lines and see how that works. And it never really worked. You know, you need like-minded people with like-minded people on a line to make it work. So, yeah, I do think you see Iginla make that top six. And I think you see Cole Beaudoin and, you know, maybe Gabe Smith on the third and fourth line. That makes sense. That's a good place for them to fit. And that helps the youth movement. And you're right. Keller's in his prime. Sergey's in his prime. It'll be interesting to see what other guys they bring back. I could see him maybe offering another year to Ian Cole to balance that out and just keep, because he was such a blue collar guy who did all the hard work in front of the net and ate a ton of pucks in front of the net. And really, I think was such an on ice and off ice leader for the youth movement that I could see them extending them or even just making him a coach. But then you got to ask yourself, the guys that we love that were here last year, who do we give a roster spot to if it takes a spot from Iginla or Beaudoin or Denoyer? So you're going to see a lot of line mixing in the beginning of the season. And it'll be interesting to see what happens and see if they really do. There's just not really great free agents on the market that you'd want to go out and pick up. I mean, technically Kane's a free agent and Tuck, who have been great players in the past, but I just don't think there's enough to go chase to change that line or, you know, to give up a spot for one of these guys that is a top 10 pick.
Jay, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for joining us and look forward to talking to you again throughout the offseason as they do or don't make moves. We'll see what happens.
Draft coming up on the 26th, free agency, July 1.
All right, there's Jay Stevens. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
Summer is all about freedom, fun, and growing up. And between the ages of 9 and 13, kids are starting to form their views about alcohol. With more independence, their still developing brains need more guidance and support than ever. That's why summer is the perfect time to stay connected and plan fun, safe family activities together. Research shows kids who spend quality time with their parents doing what they enjoy are less likely to drink underage. And when kids feel close to you, they're more likely to listen, especially when you set clear expectations. In fact, kids who drink before 15 are far more likely to struggle with alcohol later. This summer, create a no-bummer summer with fun, alcohol-free activities for your kids. Go to summer.parentsempowered.org to take a quick quiz and discover ideas tailored to your family. A little time together can make a big difference. For more information and to learn more about how to prevent underage drinking, visit parentsempowered.org.